being part of this amazing team here in Brampton, speaking loudly for Brampton and Ottawa, making sure that you're continuing to lead with this incredibly strong, connected community. Merci à tous d'être ici pour cette annonce.
Everyone for being here for this announcement that will help to create more housing faster here in Brampton.
People across the country are struggling with the rising costs of housing. And in Brampton, you're feeling it acutely. This is a community that is only getting bigger. In fact, Brampton is one of the fastest growing municipalities in Canada. Well, you need more housing to keep up with the demand, and you need it to be built faster and built in convenient, connected places. Well, that's what our Housing Accelerator is all about, and why I'm so excited to be announcing that we have reached an agreement with the City of Brampton. Today, we're announcing that Brampton is the next city to receive significant funding from our Housing Accelerator, and we estimate that this will mean more than 24,000 new homes over the next decade, with 3,100 fast-track to be built in the next 3 years alone. As part of this plan, we'll see houses built near transit stations like the nearby GO station, near main streets and downtown, places that are convenient, places where people want to live, places where people can have the very best quality of life. Sean va pouvoir nous partager plus de détails dans un instant.
Sean will be able to share more details in a moment, but I know that he's been working hard to sign other agreements such as this one. This is the fifth agreement that we've made with a major city since we announced the Housing Accelerator Fund, and I know that there will be more across the country.
The cost of living is putting a lot of pressure on the middle class and people working hard to join it, which is why we've been making sure to deliver real relief. We're delivering support for families by bringing the cost of daycare down, with it on track to reach $10 a day. And today, eligible families will receive their monthly Canada Child Benefit payments. This is hundreds of dollars tax month that makes a huge difference in the lives of millions of Canadians. This important support increased just in July to keep up with inflation, which means this year, a family could receive up to almost $7,500 a year, tax-free. We delivered the grocery rebate, and we're working to bring relief at the checkout counter through both legislation and our conversations that are holding big grocers to account. We're tackling junk fees and taking action to reduce banking fees. On a éliminé les intérêts sur les prêts canadiens.
We eliminated interest on Canada student loans and for apprentices, and ensure that seniors receive an increased amount every month to track with inflation.
Is one of the biggest stresses each month. And after decades of inaction by previous governments, our government has been getting to work, investing in affordable housing and programs to help people through the National Housing Strategy, which helped build that project 2 years ago, the tax-free First Homes Savings Account, and more. We need more housing, more collaboration with great partners across orders of government, more investment from private and nonprofit partners, and of course, more shovels in the ground. We need to work together to build homes so people can build their lives, families, and futures they want. We've faced big challenges as a country before, and we're ready to tackle them now. That's exactly what today is all about. On travaille avec des partenaires de partout au pays pour s'assurer
que la promesse to ensure that the promise of Canada stands. The promise of improving the quality of life each generation.
Canada is the best country in the world. Let's keep working to make it even better. Merci beaucoup, mes amis. And now I'm happy to turn it to a minister who's been unbelievably hardworking in getting out there across the country to encourage.
We've been listening to the Prime Minister making a housing announcement in Brampton.
Everyone is scared of what this means right now in terms of whether you can send your kids to school safely or whether you're going to be harassed walking in the streets or shouted at on a university campus. And they're scared about what this might mean around the world, in the region, but elsewhere. People are worried, people are scared, and Canadians of all backgrounds who are represented in Parliament are reflecting the very real fears and concerns that everyone has. Our jobs as parliamentarians is, yes, to speak for our communities, speak for our constituents, speak for Canadians, and make sure everyone's fears are being heard and reflected upon and acted on. But our job is also as parliamentarians, even as we're representing people, to reassure people, to reassure everyone that this is Canada. And here, our differences must and will remain a source of strength. Being able to learn from each other, being able to hear each other in their moments of celebration, in their moments of pain, being able to respect each other. That's who we are as a nation. That's what we've done over the past decades and indeed century and a half. So yeah, there are lots of different perspectives, but there are shared fears and concerns amongst all parliamentarians, and a commitment every single day to keep everyone safe here in Canada and everywhere around the world.
Puis-je voir le même commentaire en français, s'il vous plaît?
Les Canadiens tracent leur origine dans
Canadians
chaque coin de notre planète.
trace their origins to all corners of this planet. It's one of our strengths. But that means that when there are terrible events, such as what we are seeing in the Middle East, that means that Canadians are affected. Muslims, Jewish faith, and people who have family in the region, people who are worried about their children in an increasingly unstable world. People are worried. People are angry. Of course, the role of parliamentarians is to reflect the concerns of its citizens, as well as reflect their hopes. But we also have a responsibility to listen, to work together, and to ensure that we remember who we are as Canadians. We are respectful people, and open people, people of compassion. Yes, people are hurting now. But we will continue to be there for one another. That's how we get through this, and that's how we remember who we all are.
What evidence are you waiting for to see in the hospital explosion in Gaza before you assign responsibility for that incident?
Obviously, the hospital explosion was a terrible, terrible thing. We deplore the loss of civilian life, of innocence. We are working with our allies internationally to make sure that we can determine exactly what happened. The protection of civilian life, whether it's hostages being held by Hamas, or civilians in Gaza or elsewhere, needs to be at the forefront of everything we do, not just in the region, but as an international community. And that is what our diplomatic efforts are focused on, whether we're speaking to the leaders of Israel or of the Palestinian Authority, whether it's in my conversations with President Sisi or the Crown Prince of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia or any other leaders in the region, the King of Jordan. We are going to continue calling for peace and calling for the protection of all civilian lives.
En français, s'il vous plaît.
Okay.
Please.
L'explosion dans l'hôpital était
The explosion at the hospital was terrible, and we are working with our allies to determine exactly what happened. But the loss of civilian lives is completely unacceptable. That's why we're working at a diplomatic level with all our allies and everyone else in the region to try and protect civilian lives, trying to protect those who are innocent in Gaza. I spoke with the Prime Minister of Israel, with the Palestinian Authority, with the King of Jordan and Prince Salman from Saudi Arabia, as well as the President of Egypt. We are working together with all partners in the region to try and protect civilian lives and put an end to this tension. Question on the same subject. There are at least 150 Canadians stuck in the Gaza Strip for about 2 weeks now. We know Israel is mounting a ground invasion. It's being said that the Rafah border crossing is open according to Egypt. So what is blocking that now? Is it the Israeli authorities preventing Canadians from getting out? From the very beginning, one of our major concerns was the security of Canadians in the region. As you know, we had quite a number of flights to get Canadians out of Tel Aviv. We had Canadians also get out of the West Bank in the last few days. We're working extremely hard to try and help the over 150 Canadians and their families, in total about 300 people. We're working to try and help them get out of Gaza. Our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister Joly, has been coordinating with our allies for days and other partners in the region to try and ensure that these people can get out safely. We will continue tirelessly until that is the case.
Obviously, keeping Canadians in the region safe and getting them out to safety has been one of our primary preoccupations from the very beginning of this conflict. We have airlifted out of Tel Aviv close to 1,000 Canadians and hundreds more from allied countries who were trying to get to safety. We've seen buses filled with Canadians, or one bus and hopefully another soon, come out of the West Bank into Jordan to keep Canadians safe. And we have been working since day one tirelessly to try and get safe passage for the 150, 160 Canadians that we know about in Gaza, and the close to 150 more family members, ideally, who are with them. We're going to continue to work every single day. I spoke about it directly with President al-Sisi of Egypt. I've spoken about it with President Netanyahu. We're going to continue to try and do everything we can as quickly as we can to get Canadians out to safety alongside our allies who are trying to do the same thing.
Sur l'aide, maintenant, ça fait presque un mois que votre gouvernement fait des allégations à l'endroit du gouvernement indien.
It's on India. It's been months that there have been allegations by your government against India, but no arrests. The tension seems to have intensified. What do you see as an exit? We're very concerned by India's decision, the decision that it made this week. That decision was to act in contravention of international law. They unilaterally revoked the diplomatic immunity of about 40 Canadians. Let's put aside our serious allegations when it comes to the violation of international law, coming with the announcement that we believe that they may have participated in the assassination of a Canadian on Canadian soil. Their actions this week to unilaterally revoke diplomatic immunity of 40 Canadian diplomats. This is something that should be a concern to all countries in the world. If one country is allowed to simply revoke those diplomatic protections that are in place for diplomats, then the world will become more and more uncertain. And a decision to ignore the Vienna Convention on diplomats should be of concern to everyone. And that is putting aside the serious allegations we mentioned a few weeks ago.
The actions that the government of India took this week are themselves contrary to international law. All countries in the world should be very worried about. And this is putting aside the allegations we made of a serious violation of international law with the alleged killing of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil that the Indian government could have been involved in. This is a matter, putting that aside, that all countries should be concerned about. The government of India decided to cancel, to revoke the diplomatic protections of 40 diplomats working in Canada, working in India. This is something that has far-reaching consequences for the diplomatic world that I know many, many countries are very worried about. But it also has very real impacts on the millions of people who travel back and forth between India, as students, as family members, for weddings, for businesses, for the growing trade ties between our countries. The Indian government is making it unbelievably difficult for life as usual to continue for millions of people in India and in Canada. And they're doing it by contravening a very basic principle of diplomacy. This is something that should concern everyone, but it's something that has me very concerned for the well-being and happiness of millions of Canadians who trace their origins to the Indian subcontinent.
Good morning, Maal Hamid with the Canadian Press. Israel's government has voted to destroy Hamas. Canada's own ambassador to the UN, Bob Ray, has also said that Hamas has to be destroyed. Is that the position of your own government? And if so, what support is Canada providing for that effort to be achieved beyond words?
Hamas is a terrorist organization. They have been recognized as such for many, many years, if not decades, by the Canadian government. And they launched one of the most horrific terrorist attacks on civilians in history. Hamas's actions are absolutely indefensible. And Israel has the full right to defend itself in accordance with international law. This is why we call upon the return of all hostages immediately, and we call upon protection of civilian life in the region and around the world.
Israel's government has not yet outlined its plans for Gaza if and when it reaches its goal to destroy Hamas. If Canada's policy for the region remains a two-state solution along the 1967 borders, what plan would Canada like to see for that region after Israel finishes its operations?
We will of course continue to deal with things as they come up, and we will have those conversations when the time comes. But Canada remains firm and steadfast in our commitment to a two-state solution. The world and the region needs a peaceful, safe, prosperous, viable Palestinian state alongside a peaceful, prosperous, democratic, safe Israeli state, Israel. This is something that we have always called for. It is something we will continue to work for every day as we move forward.
Last question.
Hi, Graham Frisk from the Brampton Guardian and Mississauga News. A report this week from StatsCan indicated that up to 43% of condos and up to 21% of homes are owned by investors and corporations in Ontario. This problem is particularly pronounced in the GTA and communities like Brampton, the fast-growing communities like Brampton. So what's the government's plan to prevent that from happening again under taxpayer-funded programs like this?
There are many factors that have gone into the housing crisis that people are facing right now. Whether it's just the growth of our economy or the growth of our population, whether it's the success of our communities or whether it's underinvestments by previous governments in housing over a very long time that requires us to step up in very, very strong ways right now. But we do know that one of the factors that is challenging for so many people is the commodification of housing, the fact that people are using homes and houses as an investment vehicle, particularly corporations using homes as an investment vehicle, rather than families using them as a place to live, to grow their lives, to build equity for their future. We have been working with partners and will continue to work, including with the Minister of Housing and the Finance Minister, to create conditions in which housings can and should be owned by people who are living in them and who want to build a strong future rather than corporations looking to improve their bottom lines. It's a work we have to do collaboratively. Federal, provincial, municipal governments have a role in it as well, but it is one that we're going to continue to do. But
my follow-ups for Minister Fraser.
Yes, of course, but thank you for asking a question about housing in this housing.
And we've been listening live to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Brampton.